Welcome back to the Menopause Coach Podcast. This is a really exciting episode today. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Dr. Jenn Huber, known as the Menopause Nutritionist on Instagram. Jenn is a registered dietitian who focuses on intuitive eating in menopause, which honestly, this conversation is just going to light your heart up. She is a naturopathic doctor and a leading voice in women's health with a special focus on menopause, health and happiness. And through her evidence-based approach and compassionate guidance, may I add, she's helped thousands of women to better understand their changing bodies during this time, to build healthier relationships with food, and to navigate midlife with greater confidence. So it was only natural that when I reached out to Jenn, the pair of us were like, yes, let's have this conversation. She is the author of Eat to Thrive During Menopause and has built a vibrant online community where she really does empower women to embrace this stage of life with knowledge as opposed to fear. So I really was looking forward to doing this episode today, and it did not disappoint. I cannot wait till you hear it. Let's jump into it as we discuss all things like nutrition in menopause, diet culture in menopause, intuitive eating principles, progesterone intolerance, using or not using HRT. This is a beautiful episode full of information for you. We're going to look at what it really does mean to thrive in midlife. As a reminder, these episodes, including this one today, are here for your information and educational purposes only. They are not meant to replace any medical advice, guidance, or support of any kind. Please do make sure that you always link in with your own medical team if you have medical-related questions. Let me welcome Dr. Jenn Huber to the Menopause Coach Podcast as we dive into this episode. Enjoy. Jenn, welcome to the Menopause Coach Podcast. This feels like such an abundant moment for me because we have been speaking on and off inside social media for years. And we got together and had a deeper chat when your daughter moved over to Scotland for uni. And it was like, how amazing that we actually get to then do this episode together now.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, and especially for the lovely note that you sent me when my daughter started uni. And we're so kind saying, I'm only 30 minutes away if she needs anything. Like, it was so nice to have a somewhat familiar face and voice that I could, lean into if she needed it, which thankfully she did great. She had a wonderful year, but it was so nice and lovely. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think this is important. As women, we come together, right? And there's never any barriers or additional expectations or hidden agendas. I am literally 30 minutes drive from door to where your daughter was. And it's like, actually just knowing that someone's there that you can be like, hey, would you mind? It's like, not at all. It's fine.
Yeah, it was so reassuring because she's my oldest. So she's the first to kind of launch. And, we're in the Netherlands now. And so, having her across an ocean, technically out of the EU and in, it was a big deal. So it was really lovely.
Oh, amazing. I will probably not be that far behind you. My two are just about to hit 16. And I was literally just talking with someone earlier today saying I might only have 2 more years with them at home. And then that might.
Do you have twins as well? Because I have 16-year-old twins.
Yeah. Yeah, we know this. We've chatted.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. We've chatted about this.
See, brain fog.
We chat to so many people. Okay, so I am super, super excited to be able to really chat with you today. I don't like to use the phrase pick your brain because it just sounds so weird, but to chat with you today on all things that are in your beautiful zone of genius. And when I came across your Instagram handle, immediately I was like, oh, I am so following this woman because of how you approach the beautiful aspects of bringing menopause into really evidence-based and backed information on nutrition, on intuitive eating. And I can't wait to record this episode today. I know the listeners will absolutely be thriving listening to what you've got to share today. So I want to use full use of our time together and jump straight in.
All right. Thank you.
Amazing. Okay. So your background then, tell us a little bit about how you have ended up becoming known as the menopause nutritionist, bringing in those dietetics and all of the amazing science element of it, but bringing an informed approach to nutrition through this behavior and intuitive eating style.
I love this question, and I'm trying to get better at answering it in a condensed way. So if we roll the clock back though 30 years, I was studying nutrition and was very much into food as medicine and really loved this idea of, having a relationship with food, but also using food in a kind of more than a dietary way, which really led my interest in integrative medicine, alternative medicine, and how I went on to study naturopathic medicine. So mid 2000s, I start practicing, I start working. I spend the first kind of 10 years of that practice in a really what I would consider like conventional practice and talking about food in the way that probably most of your listeners and I think anybody alive is used to talking about calories and nutrition and vitamins and minerals and things like that. But as I kind of hit 35, 36, I found myself in early perimenopause and found myself in the same position that I was hearing from every woman essentially over the age of 30 almost that was walking into my practice, that it felt like everything was changing, nothing was working. I wasn't feeling like myself anymore. I wasn't sleeping and I was having, these really difficult symptoms. And so finally around 37, all the pieces came together and we realized that I was in early perimenopause. And, fast forward to 44, fully menopausal at 44. I'm now 10 months shy of 50. So I've been in postmenopause for 5 years. But like so many others, I was, solution seeking and tried hormone therapy, loved that it was available to me even kind of 10 years ago. Didn't love how it made me felt. I love it for other people. I love that we're talking about it more. I love that more people have access to it. Yes, and, hopefully that continues. But I also want to kind of be the voice that says it doesn't work for everyone and that's okay. Not everybody wants it. Not everybody feels better taking it. And so that kind of left me around my 40th birthday still feeling awful, still feeling terrible. And that's what led me to kind of use all of my educational background and resources to dive into like, what can I do? And I was pleasantly surprised to learn that there was actually quite a bit of evidence for foods that can help and support, not as an alternative. I don't want to ever kind of pit it as like HRT versus food because they both have a place at the table. But for people who can't or don't want to use hormone replacement therapy, I think it's important that we talk about these options. And so that was kind of how I made it through my menopause. And in that process, really learned how to kind of manage menopause without diets and food rules. Because I also came from a very strong background of dieting and disordered eating. And by the time that I turned 40, I knew that I did not want to carry that into the second half of my life. So it was a real journey to to use that word, but I'm really happy with where it ended up. And I just feel so privileged to be able to kind of share my experience with others who might relate to what I went through.
I feel like there's so many synergies between our journeys as well, because obviously you have twins, I have twins. You went into early menopause at 37. I was the same and had recognized in my own journey of not, that whole aspect where people will say, but how did you know? And it's like, I just knew something wasn't right. So I was 33 when I started to feel that something wasn't right. But it took our NHS system and also the private system here in the UK until I was 37 to really come back and say, yeah, actually, it's very early menopause for you. But because I have the Mirena coil, which I had in place for contraception, because as though I absolutely dearly love my girls, I did not want any more twins. Nearly killed me first time. So I thought I can't do that again. So don't know if I'm postmenopausal. Don't really get fluctuations that I recognize that would indicate that I am actually still in perimenopause. I think there's a high prospect, like yourself, possibility that at 42 I am postmenopausal. So there's so much. I'm sitting here going, yep, I know how that feels. So interestingly then, you touched on a subject there about hormone replacement therapy and just not agreeing with you. What were the signs for you that it just wasn't for you?
So the main one was the progesterone intolerance. And so
Okay.
I still have my uterus. And so when anybody takes estrogen and they still have a uterus, they have to use progesterone, or estrogen and progesterone. And if your listeners are mainly outside of North America, you need to use that progesterone. And when I started taking the progesterone, I immediately felt that my mood was negatively impacted. My energy was negatively impacted. I felt even less like myself. And I tried a few different types and forms, and I would have loved to try the Mirena coil because I think that can be a really great option for people who can't. But I've also had endometriosis and a lot of scar tissue. And so my uterus isn't hanging out where it normally does. And so it wasn't really an option for me. So I really had to just accept that, this wasn't going to work out. But what I've since learned also is that for people who have ADHD and who are neurodiverse, which I do have ADHD, and learning from Dr. Helen Wall from the UK, who's recently published a book about ADHD and menopause, that there may be some changes, there may be some differences in how our brains metabolize it. Because I've spoken to hundreds of women, if not thousands, over the last few years who really relate to everything that I experienced on progesterone and feeling decidedly worse. Like it wasn't a question of maybe it's just in my head. No, it's absolutely, I'm feeling worse. And so I think that can be really validating for people who may also have that experience and feel like it's something that they've done wrong or that they didn't try hard enough. Some people, just like any other medication, not everybody is going to tolerate or do well on a medication, and that's okay.
Yeah, I love how you've shared that. And I think as well, both of us in the menopause educational and, evidence-based space, we know that there's more options available for your estrogen element of your HRT, but actually we're quite limited on the preparation options for progesterone. So we don't actually have as much choice when it comes to that. And I think that's where it can be really challenging. So yeah, progesterone intolerance, sensitivities, all of these things are real. And actually, if you are listening to this thinking, ooh, maybe that's why, then definitely seek some guidance and support from your prescribing doctor and have a discussion around maybe what Jen's raised today. And that's exactly why these episodes are here.
And I just wanted to add as well that, the options for progesterone are, like you said, they're limited. But in the UK, and I'm sure you and your listeners know this, one of the prescribing or ways of prescribing progesterone that some people can tolerate that I didn't know about and wasn't recommended to me at the time was to use it vaginally. And I think that is a brilliant option for some people. I have heard of many people who can't tolerate it orally, but actually find that works really well. So, and hopefully as we learn more about it, there will be more options available too.
Yes. Oh, I share that hope with you so much. I think when we've got options, that gives us that autonomy of care, that empowerment of choice. And it's our bodies. So we want to be able to. It's not just a matter of, do you know what? It's either you suffer with these signs and symptoms or you suffer with these signs and symptoms by taking the progesterone. But it's like, well, why can't I have it with no signs and symptoms? Thank you very much. Oh, the world that we strive to achieve. So I would love to chat a little bit with you then around your knowledge and understanding, because I just think that it's such a vast area that you've really honed in on and specialized within. Why menopause combining with nutrition/intuitive eating practices? Let's maybe start there around the question of that potentially being, what value does it add to women's health, bringing that lens of intuitive eating into our dietary intake?
Ooh, what a rich question. I do like that. So when I think of the average woman entering midlife, how many of them have been exposed to a lifetime of diet culture, food rules, eat this, not that, slimming world, all of the messages that we have to strive for a particular body type or size, not only to be happy, but to be healthy. So weight has been used as a proxy for health for a very long time. And I don't think it deserves to be a proxy for health. I don't think that there's a lot of convincing evidence that maintaining a small body is what helps us to live longer, healthier, happier, fuller lives.
Yeah, because actually we know that that's not always the case, right? We could be
Exactly.
in a smaller body, but really unhealthy with low muscle mass and
Exactly.
bone density. It's so nuanced. This is why, like, it's such a vast area, isn't it?
It is. And, the challenge that I think people have, and understandably so, is that they've never been told there's an alternative. So they just keep looking for another diet. They keep looking for another plan or a new medication or something that is going to help them achieve this goal that they might have been working on for their entire life. But then let's say they get to that goal, whatever means, they achieve it by, but then they realize that they're still dissatisfied with something. Maybe now it's their wrinkles, or maybe now it's how their body looks when it's smaller. And so what I was seeing was that there was a lot of body dissatisfaction that was showing up that couldn't be fixed with food, that couldn't be fixed with changing the size of your body, but that learning to have a different relationship with food and your body could. So food still matters. I always say, I love talking about nutrition. I wrote a whole book about nutrition. I think food matters so much, but not in the way that we've been led to believe. So I like to flip the question and say, how would you eat and how would you move if you knew that this was going somewhere good? Because that's the other thing, is that we've been taught and told that menopause is the beginning of the end, right? That once you get to menopause, life is over, you become invisible, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not true for everyone. We actually see a lot of people who are thriving in menopause.
Included, right?
Absolutely, in postmenopause. And we even have, data to back that up, that some people are actually happier and feel more freedom and more confidence. And so if you knew that that was waiting for you on the other side, would you spend all of your time and energy trying to make yourself smaller? I don't think so.
So many different ways as well, right? Not just physically.
So, nourishing your body is different than controlling it. And that's where the intuitive eating comes in, is that it teaches us to have a different relationship with food, so that we are now thinking of, playing on the same team instead of being on opposing ends. So I really loved, for me personally, how undieting my beliefs about food and bodies and health was happening at the same time as I was going through menopause. And I actually see that it is a window of opportunity, let's call it, for a lot of people, that as they're going through all of these other changes, it does sometimes force us to question, what do I believe? Why? Is it still true? Is it still serving me? And do I want to bring that with me? And so that's where I think that connection can really work for some people.
So what is intuitive eating? If you were to share this with myself and the audience, what actually is it?
So it is a framework that is based on 10 principles. It was developed by two dietitians in the States, I guess almost 40 years ago now, Evelyn Tribbley and Elise Resch, and I think their book is in its 5th edition now, but there has been quite a bit of research that has been published on this framework since, which is very much based on interoceptive awareness, which is the ability to kind of tune in and listen to what your body is telling you. Now, interoceptive awareness is something we practice every day. Think about when you think about needing to go to the bathroom. You're practicing interoceptive awareness. When you notice that you're tired and you go to bed, when you feel the need or urge to move your body, all of that is coming from something that is coming from within your body. It's a message from the body, if you were. And if we have been taught to outsource our nutrition, our movement, our decisions about, what to eat, et cetera, this idea of trusting your body can feel really foreign. But the intuitive eating framework really is a lovely bridge from the dieting world of count, measure, track, monitor all the time to learning to let go of that diet mentality. Even for people who aren't dieting, most of us have some part of diet mentality that has kind of, found its way in. Learn to practice that interoceptive awareness around like, am I hungry? Am I full? Am I satisfied? What do I want? What do I need? And which is where the gentle nutrition piece comes in. Because again, food still matters. Nobody is saying that food doesn't matter, but the intuitive eating framework helps us to see food in a more neutral way so that we can choose things that our body needs and that provide us with the nutrition, but we can also have space for things that we want just because they taste good. So it provides a more sustainable framework for eating that so many women just find it's like a big sigh of relief that there's another way that doesn't involve the constant monitoring of what they have to eat.
This really hits home with me. It's a principle that I've used, well, the 10 principles that I've used for years myself inside how I've helped multiple women, but also it really brings up the memory of when I competed in bodybuilding and had to really diet right down for stage. That probably then gave me some form of disordered eating throughout, because you're measuring and weighing even the smallest little grain of rice so that it's not over where you should be, to then come out the other end of that and then be thrust back into just life. And it's now you can, eat what you want, to eat whenever you want. I actually had a really bad rebound on the very first reverse dieting, as we would call it, where I couldn't switch off the food noise and the hunger cues. So I was constantly in what I deemed to be a hunger state. And of course, the things that I would go for were more the refined carbohydrates, the sweeties, the chocolates, the pizza, all the things, the bread, the confectionery stuff, because it was almost like I'd not had it for so long. So it brings back for me, the lived memory of, I know how that feels. And actually, I've never been able to track food in that form ever again. And it's kind of like, it's not that, I think it's really important to say this. It's not that either one of us is anti-diet culture. It's actually more of a being aware of what your body's telling you in those moments. Maybe you waken and you're not immediately hungry for breakfast. So don't have it. Wait until your body
instead
tells
of
you
eating by the clock, right? Which is very much, diet culture, whether that's breakfast is the most important meal of the day or never eat after 7 p.m. Like it can go both ways, right? And so the problem with diet culture, of course, is that it just keeps moving the goalpost. That's why, there's a new diet every day almost, because what you experienced, which is the effect of sustained restriction, is wired into our biology that when we restrict for a period of time, even short term, we then have a compensation of we're more interested in food when we stop restricting.
Yes.
And it does actually become harder to feel like you're eating normally. And, that cycle of, restrict binge is, and this isn't saying binge eating, but just like the restrict and then feel like you need a lot more to feel satisfied.
Yeah.
Every dieter knows that. Yeah. Every dieter has felt that. And so I think when we understand the physiology of what is hunger, it's a biological cue that we need refueling. It's not a character flaw. It doesn't mean that you lack willpower. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It just means you need to eat. Yeah. And when you don't hinge your worth, your value or anything else on like what's on your plate, it just becomes so much easier to build a plate that is both filling, satisfying, nourishing, and then you just eat and move on.
Yeah. It's that sense of self-love, isn't it? And the awareness of, I think this is something as well, and I love speaking to dietitians about this, because obviously you've got that dietetics background, which is different to nutritionist background.
Yes.
And that your dietetics becomes more about the, I don't want to use like medicalized or medicine side of it, but it is. It's really looking at the effects of malnourishment or maybe undernourishment. And so many women, and you'll recognize this, I'm sure, in their perimenopause transition into menopause are quite vastly undernourished from certain food types. If you've noticed that, why do you think that might be?
I think that the instinct or reflex, maybe is a better word, to cut back on what you're eating or to limit certain foods or food groups, that reflex is a result of diet culture. If
Right.
your body is changing, or even I've seen messaging that, oh, you're turning 40, you need to keep your carbs under X amount of grams per day. Like there's no evidence for that, but this is what we're being bombarded with. So that reflex is very real. It's very understandable. But we also know from research, and this is where the understanding nutrition through the life cycle is so critical, that when people are trying to reduce calories and reducing their food intake, they're likely to choose low calorie, low nutrient density foods.
Right. Yes. Filler foods as well.
And I don't think that's something we should be focusing on as we go into this transition, because when we're in this transition, we need to be adequately nourished, not just with calories, but with overall nutrition. And it's difficult to meet your needs for fat soluble vitamins if you're on a low fat diet, if you're trying to count calories.
Yeah.
And, you spoke about muscle earlier. And I think this is another key consideration, is that as humans, not just women, men and women, as we get older, it does become harder to maintain muscle. So we have to work a little bit harder to build it, to maintain it. We do need a bit of extra protein. We don't need to make it a full-time job, but we do need a bit of extra protein to do that. And if we think about, again, like, what do we want to eat to get us to this wonderful place that I think that we're going, that's probably going to not involve eating less. Right. And that's not to minimize the discomfort of body changes, weight gain, all of those things that, so many women in midlife experience. I certainly did as well. It's not to minimize or dismiss those feelings, but it's just to insert this idea of, will losing weight really fix them? And will it help you get to the other side of menopause feeling strong, feeling nourished, feeling, like yourself again? I think that that's a really great question that I love exploring with people. And it often opens up this little crack of, again, this, alternate universe that maybe they didn't know existed.
It's something that I always do take very much with gratitude and awareness that I am in a healthy body as far as size is concerned. And although I have my own little nuances from very early menopause, osteopenia confirmed in my spine, there's a few other things that, you contend with these things. But I can't ever sit here and say I know what it's like to be in a larger body with constant food noise, with the kind of, I don't want to use the word inability because it sounds so negative, the restriction or the constant noise that surrounds food and the fear that that could then bring. But what I will say is, as I've navigated from being a premenopausal woman with no weight challenges to a perimenopausal to postmenopausal woman with weight struggles, holding a lot of that around my belly, like most women, right? Belly fat, weight fluctuations consistently. And obviously you're dealing with a lot of symptoms of energy, restricted sleep at times. Yes, like it gets quite tough, right? So it's natural that the brain obviously is fueled around glucose. And we naturally will turn to things like carbohydrates. I'm just going to have a bit bread. That's my nemesis, but love it with lots of butter on. Don't apologize for it. But I think that what you've hit on there for me today is around that actually, as we start to try and make our bodies smaller, if we start to gain body fat, we will naturally cut the nutrient dense and rich foods as opposed to those that are maybe less so. Hence the reason that we have this unknown problematic stage of life where we may actually be deficient in certain minerals and vitamins and not know.
Yeah. And, that's always a challenge because in many ways, we don't have great ways of measuring those deficiencies, and so that's definitely an area of nutrition research that I would love to see more of. But we can look at patterns of eating and look at what nutrients are associated with those patterns and make some pretty, decent guesses most of the time.
So why would you think then, if we look at this we talked a bit about diets, and I know you and I have very similar shared lines of thinking, and it's like, look, every diet can work because it is, very much around not restriction per se, but the balance of energy in
Yep.
and movement, right? Energy in, energy out. But why do you think that so many diets potentially stop working in perimenopause, that we have naturally went, oh, I'll just do this, and I know within a week I'll have dropped that half a stone or those 5 pounds, and it doesn't then work for us in perimenopause?
Oh, that's another great question. So, the calorie in, calorie out equation is true. I'm the first one to say, we're not, we can't deny the laws of thermodynamics. The calorie in, calorie out does work, but it works in a vacuum. So when we're measuring that and we're making assumptions about that, we're assuming 8 hours of sleep, lots of time for self-care. We're making a lot of assumptions that we may not be able to maintain for all kinds of reasons. That's one. The other is that metabolism is far more complex, though, than just calories in, calories out. So I like to use the example of, think of the back of a watch. If you take the back of the watch off, you will find many moving parts. One of those is food, one of those is movement. All of the other moving parts, we may not have kind of real control over because it's going to be genetics, environment, early childhood experiences, trauma, hormones, stress, all of these other things that influence the calories in and the calories out.
Yeah.
So then we also have dieting history, though, and this is still somewhat of a question mark because we do have some research that supports this idea of metabolic adaptation, meaning that the more often you lose and regain or weight cycle, the more adapted your metabolism becomes, because your body doesn't know that you're intentionally trying to cut calories. It just thinks that you've been through multiple famines. Right. And so it's protecting itself against the next famine. And so there's something called fat overshooting, which is also what happens that when we lose weight, let's say we lose 10 pounds and regain 15, a larger percentage of that regain will be fat because it's easier to regain fat than it is to regain muscle. So there's all of these complex factors. And it really is a bit of a unicorn to meet somebody in perimenopause who has never dieted. Yeah. So almost everybody that I meet is coming to midlife with some dieting history. For many of them, they've dieted 30 or 40 times. They have never not been on a diet. They've started a new diet every Monday.
It's sad, isn't it? It's the psychology part of it as well, then, when we think of that. Yeah.
And so again, but the messaging is to blame themselves. It's like, oh, what's wrong with me? It's not working this time. And so I always like to bring it into like, you're not doing anything wrong. And it is almost a universal experience that there is some, body composition changes, weight redistribution, increase in fat mass that happens. And that is somewhat of a programmed into our DNA change. It doesn't mean that it's a runaway train, which is the fear, right? That as soon as we notice that, oh my gosh, I've gained however many pounds and I don't know what happened. I don't know why. I can't explain it. The fear is that something outside of you, outside your control, is causing it. So I always like to, provide that kind of context and just say the best thing you can do is to fuel your body regularly and adequately. Resist the urge to fast for 18 hours a day. Resist the urge to cut out entire food groups.
Yeah. No evidence that actually supports, right? Unless there's a dietetic requirement that is medically aligned. So it's a tough one, right? I think that the generation that both you and I have been through is that diet culture. And like you mentioned, Slimming World and Slim Fast, and when we think about it. I remember when I was a teenager, it was the Kate Moss era of nothing tastes as good as skinny
Oh
heels.
gosh. Yeah.
Right? And it was like people would say things like, oh, once on the lips, forever on the hips. And that just, I mean, it stayed with me. I know it, right? I know the feeling. So you would approach a lot of foods based around good and bad, the terminology of people saying things like treat or cheat foods,
Hmm.
dirty or clean foods. And actually, the evidence based practitioners in us will say, well, there's no such thing. There's food. Your body does not look at an apple or look at a donut and immediately go, oh, yeah, you eat the donut and I'm going to make you gain all this body fat and all this weight, when potentially the calorie volume might be the same.
Absolutely. And that's such a great point, Adele, because people are always surprised when I say, by the time that your body has broken down the apple, the carrot, the donut, whatever it is, and is using the glucose, because all carbohydrates, all sugars eventually end up as glucose, your body has no idea where it came from.
No,
So
absolutely.
it doesn't
It
know
doesn't
that
look
this is
clean or
glucose
dirty.
from the donut. Exactly. And I think that can be incredibly freeing because there's so much guilt attached to like, oh, this is bad food, and assuming that our body can't use it. But if you eat the donut, your body will use the fuel it gets from it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're training. Like I think now I had and I so loved them. I had a big bowl of Cocoa Pops before I went for my leg session at the gym with my PT because he absolutely kills me. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have these because I'm going to need them. And it was one of my best training sessions because there was probably psychologically, I felt like I was fueled. Yeah, the glucose was fast acting because it came directly through that, like, well, it was a fortified cereal as well. I'm going to tell myself I've got the vitamins and minerals in there. But, it's like actually when we think about the aspects of how we can use nutrition, we don't just eat foods in singular form. We have meals. And when we put those meals together, equally, our bodies don't run on that 24-hour cycle and clock. It's like some days you might actually feel like I need more energy today than I've not really been that hungry today.
And that's where the intuitive eating can be so helpful to be
Right.
able to
Yeah.
notice that instead of it's 8 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock, it's 6 o'clock, I have to eat now.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner. There's no such time or thing. Oh, I love this conversation. Okay, I want to chat a little bit about your book because you obviously have so much knowledge and this beautiful, compassionate, heart-led approach to the science part of it, which a lot of people can feel a bit confused and restricted around the rules. So tell us a little bit about your book, Eat to Thrive During Menopause.
I wrote the book that I needed 10 years ago. So the first part of the book is what's happening. So it really kind of walks through the hormone changes, the symptoms, how those things are connected. And for each of the symptoms, I also have a kitchen connection section. So if we're talking about hot flashes, for example,
Yeah.
I walk you through the evidence and how to implement eating more soy, for example, and why soy's phytoestrogens were one of the things that helped my hot flashes so much, but how there's so much evidence for them, but also how they can support your health because, we've been talking about perimenopause a lot, but postmenopause, we need to be thinking about heart health and bone health and brain health. So I really designed this to be something for any stage. So anybody who's in perimenopause or 10 years postmenopause can still learn a lot from this book. And I introduced this idea of these 5 key ingredients. And so are you familiar with a capsule wardrobe? Have you heard that idea before?
No, I have not.
So a capsule wardrobe, and I don't have a clothing one, but I like the idea, so I kind of borrowed from it. Is
Okay.
let's say you're going on a trip. You're going to pack a selection of mix and match items, right? Tops and bottoms,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it has another word that I don't know, but it's a capsule wardrobe. It's this idea of like you're limiting your selection, but that's making it easier to decide what to wear. And so this idea of having these 5 key ingredients, which are protein, fiber, soy and phytoestrogens, calcium, and omega-3 fats, is having these kind of capsule pieces that you can learn to mix and match based on your own needs, based on your own goals, your own health considerations. But it helps to tune out the everything matters. You have to know everything about nutrition, and you need to be an expert in order to be able to support your health. And so I really like, or you can think of these as buckets as another way of looking at it. So all of the recipes are organized by and tagged with these key ingredients. So instead of telling somebody how many grams of this or grams of that, it tells them kind of what bucket they fall into.
Nice.
So it helps to support that intuitive eating process of what do I want? What do I need? And keeps them out of that perfectionism, all or nothing thinking that, so many of us find really challenging.
Yeah, I am a recovering perfectionist.
You and me both.
You. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And no shame in admitting that for sure. What I'm hearing in that from my perspective as a really, busy mum, businesswoman, woman in my own life, it can become quite challenging, especially when you're thinking of others' health. And I've got the girls, and I'm constantly thinking about variety of foods. It can get quite overwhelming. So it's very similar to what we'll do. I always have a fully stocked fruit bowl. I always have cereals for the girls because, again, I'm like, look, cereal is not bad. It's not the enemy, right? We've got this and you can enjoy. They've always had a very stabilized upbringing that I would never say that if the ice cream van came up the street that they couldn't have it because they hadn't eaten dinner. It was like, it's still food. Like if he's there and the ice cream man comes up and you want to go get it, go have it now. Don't bring it in the house and put it back in the freezer till after dinner. Eat it now. It's a food, right? And it's actually raised two beautiful teenagers now who will, and their friends think it's crazy, who will pass up confectionery for, actually, I'm going to have a punnet of raspberries or strawberries or berries because that's what they would like. I think when we take away the restriction and almost, for me, I am such a rebellious woman that if I'm told not to push the big red button as I walk past it, you bet your luck I'm going to whack the bugging thing when I walk past, because it's just like, well, you've told me not to.
Yep.
So what I've recognized in this inner perfectionist healing is that if I'm told not to do something, and the same transfers into diet culture, right? Of, yeah, well, you can't really have any more than 1,100 calories or 1,300 calories today. I'm like, oh, who says?
And that's rebellious eating. There's actually a term for that, rebellious eating, right? And so rebellious eating is exactly that. This inner, I don't know, almost like a safety net that is protecting you from restriction. So it's not just you. It's not just you.
Okay, I thought I was slightly broken, but that's good to know. Which is why, again, from my own perspective, and I'm sure if people are listening to this and thinking that's me as well, I cannot bring myself to open up a food tracking app and do all
Oh my gosh,
scanning barcodes or weighing foods. It's very much done from a, does this feel in alignment with my own personal goals right now? And actually, if I recognize that I've maybe been gaining some body fat, not so much, I don't know what I weigh, but if I recognize in clothing or like recognize how I look at it from a, is this still healthy? Mm-hmm. And if I feel like it's compromising health, which is one of my huge big values, then I will cut back a little bit on the snacking. I'll maybe be a bit more mindful around the food types that have maybe been creeping in too frequently. So again, there's that decision aspect of it. I feel like we could talk forever on these types of topics,
think so too.
Right? And I'm super mindful of your life currency and time. So I would love to ask you one strong question as we close up today. And then we'll come to where people can connect with you and obviously get the book and the recipes and all the things, knowing that actually this is a beautiful Bible to keep in their home life. But if women are listening to this today and maybe feeling a bit exhausted, this is something I hear from a lot of women, is around like, I just don't know what is right. I'm being told all of this information over social media. Do this, don't do this. Fast, don't fast. All the things. It's so much conflicting noise out there. They're maybe confused and a bit kind of discombobulated with the world of menopause, nutrition, food, and health. What would you want her to know between one to three things even? What would you want her to know?
The first is that you're still a human, and there's such an abundance of messaging online, especially, that, everything changes in menopause and you need to do everything differently. You're still a human in a human body.
Mm-hmm.
And so the basic patterns of eating and moving and living that support health and have, an incredible amount of evidence behind them still apply. And so if somebody is telling you you have to do everything differently, that's a big red flag for me. Absolutely. And the other one, which really speaks to this massive amount of misinformation and disinformation, is that you might actually need less information, not more. And maybe you need somebody who can help you filter the information that you have so that you can use it more effectively. All the time people will say, I save hundreds of posts every week from nutrition influencers and, recipes, but I never go back to look at them. But your brain loves that it feels like you're doing something about it every time you save it. Yeah. But if it's not helping you to make a decision, if it's not helping you to actually action something, it's just adding to the noise. So don't collect information. That's just going to make it harder to find what you're looking for. Figure out what your values are. I love that you mentioned that. I do a lot of that work too. Like, what is important to you? And then find someone who can help you filter the information that you already have so that it is relevant, it is applicable, and it feels sustainable. That is the most important thing.
Oh, I'm so here for that. I think if someone had told me that at the beginning of my own journey into menopause, it would have made life a lot easier for sure. And that is why we are here and we do these episodes, so that we can bring this beautiful science-backed, evidence-based, this is not just let's chat on a topic. There's a lot of strong evidence behind this. And obviously, please do make sure you connect with Jen if any of this has resonated with you. You now have someone else in your corner that is here to take care of you and serve you beautifully from that evidence practitioner lens.
Thank you so much.
Jen, thank you so much for joining us today, giving your life currency, your brain power, your heart energy to the Menopause Coach Podcast listener base. Where can they connect with you and where can we connect to buy your book?
Well, the book you can find anywhere where books are sold. So in the UK, you can order it through Waterstones or any of the other usual outlets. And you can find me online at menopause.nutritionist, which is where I hang out a lot, or on my podcast, which is The Midlife Feast.
Love this. We are going to make sure all those links are in the show notes for you. So if you are someone who loves to just make life as easy and simple as possible, scroll down to the show notes and click those links. Get connected with Jen. Any questions? We're both here. So let us know what you need and we will guide you to the right source of support. Jen, thank you so much.